All right, so I think I finally got the React client-side demo for Val Town. And I packed it all into one val in 36 lines of code. And I think it's simple, but on the other hand, it might take me an hour, we'll see how long this video is, to explain what these 36 lines of code are doing, because there's a lot of complexity and nuance packed in here. But we're gonna go through it line by line, and I'll show you, how to use this pattern yourself and where we might be able to go from here. All right, so this is a HTTP val. And so when it's run, when you go to this URL, this is the HTML that's loaded. It returns this response, which is a content type of HTML, and it returns this HTML, which we'll get into. And this app is just a button that counts how many times it's been clicked fully client side. So if you reload the URL, the count gets totally reset. There's no persistence, it's just a regular client-side app. You could think of it like Create React app, but in Val Town. And what's interesting about Val Town is it's a server-side Dino platform. So this code really should run in Dino. That's the point of this code. But we found a way, I found a pattern to get this code to also, or part of this code, to also run in the browser with React. All right, so let's go through it. All right, I think where I want to start is here, what's going on here. This is returning, this is an HTML, this is a React component that we are rendering on the server using React DOM server to render it to a string. So this is 100% equivalent to the following. Just gonna do a backtick and another backtick here. So now it's a string, and we'll just have to change this to that. And unless I made a mistake, I think these are 100% equivalent. Just one extra parentheses. And there we go, 100% equivalent. And then now I could, in theory, delete this import, and we've simplified this. So what I've done is this is what's happening. This val is a server that returns HTML, and the HTML that it returns looks like this. In another framework, we would make a new file. This would be a different HTML file, and we would import it and return it. But whatever, we can just inline the HTML string. So that's what's going on there. And then this I'll get back to. But I'm just going to go back to what I had before, because I think it's a little bit more idiomatic. It's kind of what I want. It's kind of what I prefer. So what's happening here is we're using React JSX, which is a normal thing to do. We use it here. But then we're instead of having this be a React component, we are rendering it to a string on the server and then returning it. So this function is doing what I was doing before. It turns it into an HTML string with all the React bells and whistles. So really, this is a React server component. I think a lot has been said and been confused about what a React server component is. And to the best of my knowledge, a React server component is a React component that's rendered on the server, and that's what's happening right here. So we have a React server component here, but it's nothing special. It's just using JSX to write HTML on the server. So notably, you can't use React hooks because at the end of the day, this has to render out to a boring HTML string, and HTML strings don't know about React hooks. So that's where this comes in. So because this is a client-side demo, we want to load a basic HTML skeleton. This is just how Create React app worked, to the best of my memory. It's been a while. So you have a little root, and then you have a script that will render the React component at the root. All right, so now that gets us to this. This is where I think everything gets kind of, where we tie the knot and everything kind of comes together. So we're importing this, like the very script we're in, React client demo, that's what we're importing right here. Let me put it on the screen so you can see the value of this. Import. All right. All right, so this is the URL that's being imported. And let's, I wonder if I could put this here just for, no, I can't replace this with a new URL. All right, I'll just go to a new tab. So this is what we have. Oh, this is different. Oh, these are different vowels. Sorry. This code right here is what we're serving. ESM.town is like Val Town's package registry CDN thing. And so this is what, so you can actually import from this on the client. That's like where the magic of this happens. And so here we can kind of show you how this would work. So when I do here, I could do await import this URL. And so what's going to happen is it's going to try to run this code right here on this page, and it's probably going to fail because there's no root element on this page. But like just to kind of show you what's going on, I could do like console.log hello and save it, and then come back here, and then I'll take off the version number because then it wouldn't have worked. All right, and there we go. We get the log. So you can import Val Town vals client side. That's like the key thing here. And when you do import a Val Town val client side, we do something that's a little magical, but ultimately I think it's fine. We detect the user agent. We detect that the import is not happening from Dino. The import or node, the import or bun, whatever. The import is happening from a browser. And so then on the server, on the fly, we transpile this TypeScript, or actually this is TSX, this TypeScript JSX. We transpile it and return it to the browser so that it runs in a browser environment. All right, so what we're doing here is we are loading this own vals, we're loading itself on the client, which is a wild thing to do because this is server-side Dino. And so like the fact that we're loading this whole thing in the client is a pretty wacky thing to do. But it works because any servery thing, because of web standards, and like I'm being careful in this file to not do anything that would offend a browser. So all of my imports are web standard HTTPS imports that work on the client and the browser. This is very important. So like the normal Dino way to do this would have been something like this. But then that would immediately not work in the browser. Yeah, we're getting an error about, the npm thing not working, of course, because this doesn't make any sense to a browser. So esm.sh is this wonderful CDN for ESM packages. We use it a lot in Val Town. This is how we tell the TypeScript Dino compiler that we're writing React JSX. And the reason this is important is because what if you wanted to do a different kind of JSX? You could do Preact or Hano or Vue. So that's important. Okay, so we are loading itself. We're loading this own val in a script tag. And then what are we doing with it? We are rendering, we're doing the classic create React app style rendering of the component, the counter component at the root. That's it. The key thing here is that we aren't running this code on the server. We're only running this in the browser because I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure this will just immediately throw an error. Let's find out. Yeah, document is undefined. So we could have done if type of document is not undefined. That's like another way we could have written this code. Maybe that's like a little bit more idiomatic. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They amount to the same thing on Val Town. So this code only runs on the client, and then it's also important that this code only runs on the server. And that's accomplished by the fact that it's in a function, and this function isn't called anywhere on the client. This function is called by Val Town because it's an HTTP val, and we call this function whenever you load this URL. And then this is a normal client-side React component. All right, that is that. I think I explained this line. This is just a normal import. This is a normal import. This is a normal import. All right, I think everything's mostly explained. If I missed anything, let me know. Now we're going to move on to some kind of more, like, I immediately, when I get something like this working, I can't stop here, because look how, we get this. I think you saw it before. We get a demo that I have to keep changing the URL to get it to reload. We get it's loading so fast. My complaint doesn't even make any sense. We get a flicker sometimes, and when it's a complicated app, that flicker is longer. And when things aren't cached, that flicker is longer, a lot longer. Here, why don't I show everybody that? Oh, that was that time you really saw it pretty obviously here. And if I open the dev tools and then reload it, ooh, look how long that was. Because you see all the React we have to load client side before we can get anything. Yeah, that's what happens when you do it all client side. And there's no bundling here or anything like that, which I love because of the simplicity. All right, so let's say we want this exact demo, but we want it to be lightning fast. So it's pretty wild. If you just throw the counter in here, then what we have is we will server render this React component. It'll just throw away the click handler and the count, but it will work. So let's start by commenting this out and rendering it. So now they render at the same exact time because they're in the same HTML string. And now nothing happens because this is just a boring old HTML string here. I can open it up, and then let's see, view. Here, I'll just right click and view page source. All right, so you see that I've been clicked a certain number of times is right here in the HTML by default. What we had before, let me get rid of this. I guess I can just undo a couple times. What we had before, save and view source, there's nothing there, and then this injects it later. All right, so now we're on our way to server side and client hydrate. If you don't catch where I'm going, that's where I'm going. So okay, so now let's put this back and this. So now we have it in the we are server rendering it, and then we're also client side rendering it. So save this and reload, and now it reloads. Really, it's already there in the HTML, so it's an instant loading, but then it also works on the client. I was kind of surprised when this happened. I just got this kind of, I just threw it in there and I was surprised. Normally when you do SSR things and then hydrate in the client, you get like errors, but I didn't get an error this time. All right, so that might seem awesome, and I think it is. One issue that I don't exactly understand, the distinction between render and hydrate. Those are two different React APIs. So I think hydrate, if you're going to put it here, instead of rendering, I think there's like a hydrate root thing that we want to do. Let's see, let's see if I wonder if CodeM can figure out the hydrate. I don't think that works, but oh yeah, no, we do want that. Create root.hydrate. Could that be it? No. I think there's like a hydrate root counter React. Hydrate root. I've done this before. DOM node, React node. Okay. Create root. Hydrate root. All right. And then I don't need create root anymore, I think. All right. Run that. Cool. So I think this is more idiomatic. Do I get any hydration errors? No. So now, so hydration errors happen when things are on different states. So I think, let's see, like I think if I started this at 10, I think it would just, they both be at 10 and no errors. That's fine. They both just start at 10. Oh, you notice that? So until the client side loads, nothing's happening when I click the buttons, but there's nothing you can really do about that. We could start with the button being disabled. And I think then we might get an error. So like const client loaded. Set client loaded. I don't know. React at. I bet anyone who really knows about SSR is going to be like, what? This is a terrible way to do this. Disabled equals not client loaded. All right, save. Let's see. Cool. So now you have a visual indication of when we finally load on the client. That's pretty neat. I haven't seen that pattern before. All right, and then one last thing I want to do is like an initial count. So okay, so here if I do initial count is 10, I think because this one doesn't have an initial count of 10, we will get an error finally, like a hydration error. Ooh, interesting. We didn't get a hydration error. We just got it overwritten. Huh. Oh, maybe I didn't save. Save. And we should get, oh, I see. Sorry. Initial count. Oh, save. 10 to 0. Boom. Hydration error. So that makes sense because React needs these things to be in sync. So if we made this initial count 10, then this error will go away. So anyways, to recap, this is how you play around with React on the client and the server on Val Town within a single val. Like the key insight is import meta URL used on the client, and then being careful in your mind about where client-side code happens and where server-side code happens. So for example, if there was some dependency that really only worked on the server, like database is the obvious one, we have to do that on right in here. Let me kind of show you an example of that. What is a good SQLite table I have? Actually, SQLite. So I don't know. So if you know me, you might know that I run a alternative dating website. So I can do select count star from date me docs. All right. So this will return how many date me docs there are, and this is where the count is going to be. This is obviously contrived. Like the real demo I should do is make make this persistent or something, but I'm not going to do that. All right, we can have that be the initial count, which will obviously be out of sync with this. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a bad demo. I'll just put it here. Count. All right, and save. All right, so this is a challenge for the reader. If you could figure this out, I think you've understood what happens here. Why is this stuck in a disabled state? The reason is that you could find this out for yourself by refreshing the page here. The reason is that we're trying to import SQLite on the client, and this does not work in the client because it uses npm imports. So this doesn't work on the client. And it wasn't designed to work on the client. And even if it did work on the client, it doesn't matter because it needs my Val Town environment variable in order to run SQLite queries against my database because it's authenticated. So we really only want this to run in the server, and those lines do, but this import doesn't. So in order to make the rest of this work in the client, we just have to put the import here. You can't do normal imports here, so you just have to turn it into a asynchronous one. Const SQLite equals await import, and then it works. Ta-da! So this, if you've like tried to wrap your head around server components, like I have, you'll see, these directives use client. Well, here this should obviously be use server, and then, and then use client. Use client. These directives are two compilers to like help you keep track of what code is supposed to run on the server and what part is supposed to run on the client. And in Val Town, we don't really have these patterns. We don't really have like a compiler besides like the TypeScript compiler, which is pretty straightforward. So I don't know what patterns we're going to use. Like this pattern is kind of interesting, and I think a little bit more explicit and less magical than use client. And same here, like it's kind of a little bit more, it's like straightforward. Like this is a server handler, so like anything inside of it is use server. And then I think it's like a good default that anything that's not here or here should be usable in both client and server. So I feel like what I've seen is that maybe server components is the default, and then use client is the one that you have to specify. But I kind of feel like each of these should be what you have to specify, and the one that you shouldn't have to specify is where both are valid. But I don't know. I guess it depends on where your perspective is, if you're looking at things from the server or from the client, or both. All right, I'm gonna stop the demo here. I think. I guess I could just show you a couple more things. I tried a couple of weeks ago, or maybe at this point it's months ago. Let's see. Months ago. I tried to turn this into a framework, and so I made this SSR React Mini framework that kind of packages all these hydration things up in. And so here's like the to-do app of it. This like a simple to-do app that demos this framework. But what I found is that these patterns are too nascent to make a framework, and that I was constantly fighting the framework and like wanting to add features to the framework, when really this pattern is so straightforward, and if you stick to this, then you can like expand out in whatever direction you want. So I would recommend at this point just sticking to this pattern here. I'll save this version here, maybe. I'll save this version. I think maybe I'll comment this part out because it's a little I want this thing to serve as a good demo for React. So I think this is like probably more idiomatic. But then if you'll permit me, one final thing that I could show you is I have this date me. I have a fork of the date me directory that uses React router and server-side rendering. So that's this one. So it loads on the client and the server. So this is client-side loading because we've already loaded the page. This is all client-side loading. This is why it's so fast. And then this is a server-side call. But if you just go to browse, then it loads on the server all at once. So this kind of is the dream of client-side React, server rendered, and routing all in one. And it's a little more complicated, and I have to like forward requests for data. I don't know, like this thing is a little complicated. This is a little complicated, and whatnot. Anyways, and what's fun about this is if you've been paying attention to what's happening with Remix and React Router and how they're merging. then it wouldn't be surprising to you that I'm able to take React Router and turn it into a server-side rendering, client-side hydration framework like Remix in Val Town without a compiler. Like, it's kind of where they're heading anyways. And I think I was able to, you know what? I think I may have been showing you the wrong one. That may have been the client-side one, and this is the hydrated one. Yeah, so these are the routes. This is me forwarding loaders and actions. And this is, getting the hydration data and all that stuff. Yeah, like React Router is adding the hydration data already. Kind of like I found this by accident. So I think this is where they're going. That's my sense of things, which would be great for us because my wonderful demo that I've spent this whole time explaining to you works really well. Where are we? Demo, React client. Yeah, this one. So this thing works great, but once you have like a couple routes and a couple fetches for data, you start like duplicating your code a lot. You're like writing code to handle things server rendered and client rendered, and it just like it doesn't feel right. And React Router, I think it kind of solves these problems, but then you need it to run on the server. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. So thanks again for watching, and I would love any questions or suggestions. And of course, if you're one of the people who are working on React Router or Next.js or Remix, and you see this video and you see me doing something really stupid, please let me know. I am definitely not an expert on these topics. I'm just a guy trying to make React work on clients and servers. Thanks for watching.